Once again, your host, Ray Liotta.
Ted Williams' 400 season, DiMaggio's hitting streak, and Willie's catch in the '54 World Series were made even more legendary because of the intense coverage they received. But no one thrived in the media spotlight more than Reginald Martinez Jackson. Reggie became a Yankee in 1977, and his mere presence quickly turned the Bronx into a zoo.
I've always heard these ripples that you're a bad effect in a ball club, and yet the team you played with won 5 division titles and 3 World Championships. Is it therefore a bad rap against you?
I don't want to call it a bad rap, but I think the fact that people think of me, relate me, or associate me with winning speaks for itself.
The spark was ignited when Reggie signed what was then the largest contract in all of sports. But when he made a disparaging remark about Yankee catcher Thurman Munson in a national magazine, the fire began to blaze.
Reggie came into '77 into the Yankees and said, "I'm the straw that stirs the drink." It really pissed off a lot of people.
He said something like, "Thurman Munson thinks he's the straw, but he can only stir it bad."
This was the captain of very popular with his teammates, and Reggie came to spring training with this tremendous cloud over him. Reggie, what were you thinking?
And thus began a turbulent era of Yankee baseball, one that earned itself a most deserving nickname.
That term, Bronx Zoo, actually was great to fit at that time. You know, Billy wouldn't get along with Reggie. Reggie wouldn't get along with Billy. Everything was going on.
George hates Billy. Billy hates George. Reggie doesn't like George. Reggie doesn't like Billy. Back and forth was a headline every day.
In the face of intense media scrutiny, Reggie set out to prove he was the straw that stirred the drink. He knocked in 110 runs and helped lead the Yankees to precisely the place he was expected to when they signed him, the World Series.
Maybe no player ever had that kind of pressure on him throughout a season.
And all Reggie did with that pressure was to make a name for himself in October.
Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, New York City, the site for game number 6 of the 1977 World Series.
Reggie was the big star, and Reggie always loved the big stage and always performed best in the big stage.
He loved to be on center stage and hopefully rise to the occasion. I just had a feeling before the game that he would do something special. Just had a funny feeling about it.
Facing Bert Hooton in the 4th inning, Reggie began his one-man show.
First pitch.
There's a drive to right field and deep. Chris going back, away back. It's gone. Home run, Reggie Jackson. Well, Bert Hooton threw the wrong ball. Reggie Jackson made it the long ball.
The first home run was just a normal home run, kind of a trajectory. The second one was the fastest home run I've ever seen in leaving the bat and getting to the stands.
Going, gone. Another home run for Reggie Jackson. And the Yankees lead 7-3.
And he did it again. I mean, once he hit the second home run, I knew he was going to hit another one because he was in such a good groove.
I said, he's liable to hit another one, because you could just see that he was in perfect confidence.
Reggie had hit 2 home runs and also knocked 2 pitchers from the game. In the 8th, he faced the 3rd, Charlie Huff. But not even the game's best knuckleball would manage to get past Reggie on this day.
I felt like I was going to strike him out. I mean, that was my goal. Not walking, but I mean, I'm thinking strike this guy out. And I threw what I thought was a very good knuckleball.
I was almost frozen in time as the ball went up there.
That's going to be way back, and that's going to be gone.
3 pitches, 3 home runs. Typical of a great player seizing the moment, especially Reggie in World Series. There are times as an opponent that you have to acknowledge greatness, and that was the time.
To hit 3 home runs in 1 game in a World Series. This is what this guy lived for.
How this man has responded to pressure. Oh, what a beam on his face. How can you blame him? He's answered the whole world.
Everybody in that ballpark was cheering him. whatever craziness he had brought to the Yankees was forgiven that day.
What are they all thinking now? After all the furor, it came down to this.
I'm the straw that stirs the drink definitely created a strain between Jackson and Munson, but in some ways was healed by the big year that Reggie gave them in '77 and the, 3 home runs in the last game of the World Series. And you can see Munson with this big smile in the dugout congratulating Reggie. And that smile's not a pretend smile. I mean, he appreciated what that guy had done, taking them to the top.
Let's do it. That's how do it. Yes, it's over. The Yankees win their 21st World Series. Forget about who the most valuable player is in the World Series.
That game, that day, was something that justified everything that had taken place.
One of the most exciting and most memorable nights, especially when you consider all that went on that year.
Reggie reveled in the moment, but then he certainly deserved to.
Naturally, he came back to his locker and the interviews began, and I could only stay there a brief time, and then I went back and wrote a column, came back an hour later, and he was still talking, still in his uniform. Finally, he looked over at me and he said, "How far did that last one go?" He just wanted to know how many feet it went.
By doing something only Babe Ruth had done before, Reggie's legend was born.
That was certainly the creation of Mr. October. He was one of the greatest World Series performers of all time.
It's a great feeling. Guys like DiMaggio and Mays and Aaron and Clemente, and I can now say that I had one day that was like those guys.
When people say Mr. October, I think of the 3-in-1 day. It really is what I'm most remembered for and thought of.
And when they dedicated a plaque in his honor in Monument Park, it was really all about that night, a single night in Yankee history that nobody will ever forget.
What people forget about that event is that the last at-bat in Game 5 in Los Angeles, he had hit a home run. So he hit 4 World Series home runs in a row, maybe the single greatest World Series performance in baseball history.